Conversations Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Conversations Podcast. Today we have another one of the Ask NAATI episodes, and back on popular demand is Michael Nemarich, one of our most beloved guests on this podcast. Hi, Michael. Welcome back.
G'day, thanks. Great to be here.
Before we start, we just wanted to remind everyone that if you have any questions, we are always looking for inputs for these podcasts, and you are welcome to send your questions in so that on the next Ask NAATI episode, we will feature your questions as well. Let's get straight to it. One of our listeners has noted that there is not a possibility to list a specialization in the NAATI online directory. Now, for those of you who have worked overseas, that's often the case. They ask if you've specialized in legal translations or health translations, perhaps. Why is that not the case for the NAATI online directory? Was it ever the case in the past?
It was the case in the past. Reason that we had removed it, though, was it was something that we were unable to verify. So if someone said they were a legal specialist and then did legal work but had no actual experience in it, it was like we were endorsing that. We do note that it's a desired feature, though, and our communications team is working on the online directory at the moment, trying to work out how we can make it slightly more efficient and usable, and potentially to have those bits of additional information. So, pardon me, so people can actually promote what they do, but that doesn't make it look like NAATI's endorsing it. So there's a fine line that we have to balance, but we definitely have heard the feedback, and we'll look at a way to try and incorporate that soon.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, my following question would have been if NAATI is considering to reintroduce it, because one could argue that it would help clients match with the right interpreter or translator much better. Does that have anything to do? How are you going to verify that if you're going to reintroduce it?
Unknown at that stage, which is why I don't have an immediate answer. But we do know, again, the directory we've got is very much like a white pages. Like it's quite basic information, and it's although you can search, we think that it can be more dynamic. So we are working on ways to make that better.
Okay, great to know that. Another thing that we often hear is that NAATI is making efforts to increase the workforce. Like there's maybe some people talk about a shortage of interpreters, or they talk about, there's not enough interpreters for this, or we couldn't find an interpreter for that. But then other translators and interpreters in the field, they struggle to find work due to the large number of practitioners. How do these two realities coexist? How is that possible?
I think there's the starting point for me on this, without trying to dodge the question, is it's worth noting NAATI is the certification body. We don't provide training of note, like we're not a university or a registered training organisation. We also don't deliver service. So we're not a language service provider. We don't have an in-house interpreting team. So we sit in the middle of certification. So we get information from both trainers, government, and language service providers about gaps in the market, but we don't have a direct impact on what's happening day to day, I guess. So we do have in each state a regional advisory council that has key stakeholders in each of those states, and they visit and we get feedback from them, and plus direct interactions with stakeholders as well. There is that problem. We've definitely heard that sometimes we've been talking to a few LSPs in the last few months where they have definitely shown a struggle to get interpreters, and we're working directly with them on ways to find them training and connect them with opportunities. And I think back to the previous question, the directory is going to be a way for us to be able to increase visibility of practitioners as well. We put on at the start of the year, Fatih Karakas, who many Ask NAATI podcast listeners will know as the previous host, for supporting the profession. One of the projects he's working on is a way to give new practitioners more tools and information around how they can connect with business and industry to find work, which we think is important. There is a discussion paper that went out in April, I think it was, and was open for 2 months for consultation about an LSP endorsement program. We think that that's got a long way to go. Current plan, by the end of this year, start of next year, we're looking at a pilot. By the end of 2026, we're looking for some sort of implementation. So there is still sort of a year and a half of consultation, design, development, and work to be done on it. But an LSP endorsement program, one of the benefits that we see if that goes ahead will be that we have a more centralised database of knowledge that comes through NAATI that can assist in workforce planning and understanding where gaps are in the market. And then we can sort of work towards connecting people or working on ways to support others to get the right people into the roles if there isn't enough, or getting the people that already exist into roles as well. So that concept, again, lots of work to be done on it, but a way for us to play a more coordinating and supporting role.
Can you see, however, that there is more demand in certain languages and other languages are actually already saturated? The market is already saturated. Is that the case?
Yes, but I've also heard from a very large language service provider only a few months ago that they were struggling to get Mandarin and Arabic interpreters as well.
Okay.
For languages we think that there is a large amount for, not necessarily, but it also might just be a bit of misinformation or lack of connection that might be the way to solve that problem.
Yeah, okay. Yes, it sounds like that the LSP endorsement program is one of the biggest projects that you have going on in the next few years or months anyway, and hopefully that can help with the allocation of the workforce. That would be great, yes. On to my next question. So CI testing is not available for every language, as you know. If there are practitioners that have been working at a CPI level for many, many years and have large skill and experience, how can they get that skill and experience reflected in the certification when there isn't a CI test available?
I would also comment, though, that the level of NAATI certification should not be the sole determinant of someone's value or worth to a company. So for language service providers or hospitals or courts who are employing interpreters directly, just because CPI is the highest available does not mean they should say that they're only worth that amount or not willing to pay more. In other industries and professions, the university degree that they hold, for example, or the certification they hold from an organisation like CPI or the AICD is the starting point of denoting competence, and then work practice and relationships also have input. Having said that, we certainly do understand that is a source of frustration for practitioners. We are working on some concepts. We don't have an answer directly, but we hope to have something in the not too distant future. The largest issue that NAATI has, there's multiple issues that combine into one large issue: equity and ability to deliver. So very rough numbers, but as a guide, NAATI looks at a language that's spoken by more than 50,000 people. I'll start with the 10, with 10,000 people or more that speak it as a language other than English at home, according to the census. So we're still using 2021 census data at the moment. That is the rough mark for where CPI can be available. When it's 50,000 or above, CI becomes available. When it's 100,000 or above, specialist is available. Conference interpreting, we use European Union and United Nations, what they are often being interpreted into. There are other conditions around that. How many recognised practicing people do we have? Is it taught in a higher education institution and the like? So that rough sort of delineation of where it's available flows through to availability of potential examiners and test creators. So there's no point creating a test if you can't get anyone to market. So by having enough people in Australia, it is likely we will have enough people that are at a high enough level through academic achievement and through their work experience that they would be able to be an examiner. And it also looks at how many people are likely to take the test. So even at the CPI level, where we tested in 69 languages over the last few years, the lowest 20 languages that we test in have less than 5 candidates a year. So to invest tens of thousands of dollars into test development, training, examiner preparation and the like to maybe service one or two candidates does not necessarily make sense. But even if we did do that for the one or two candidates, there's a lot of effort into ensuring the examiners maintain their training and the like for very few tests a year. So consistency of that examination is important as well. But that is a long-winded answer to we still understand that there is a desire to go higher. I met some amazing practitioners in Melbourne over the last 6 months that are in languages of CPI, like Burmese, who have master's degrees from RMIT but can't go higher. So we're looking at options. I don't have an answer for you yet, but it's definitely on our radar and something we want to come up with a solution for.
Going back to the directory, perhaps, would there be an alternative way to show the skill, the experience, or perhaps even higher education that these candidates have in the directory? Because a lot of us are freelancers, so perhaps when you're working for the same employer over time, they might be able to recognize your value. But when you're a freelancer, often you have to find new clients and new employers very often. Would there be a possibility to show that skill and experience in the directory?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. I mean, certainly for the educational attainment, that's something that's easy to verify. So we would be able to do something along those lines. And then for other skills or employers, we would just have to work out a way to either say that it's verified by us or not, potentially. So,
Okay, yes. Um, does NAATI have any provisions for waiving or adjusting testing requirements for very experienced practitioners that have perhaps additional challenges such as health challenges or personal challenges?
I think two answers to this question. So the first one is we only offer certification through testing at the moment. So we can't waive testing requirements. However, the second part of that question also alludes to potentially people having an impairment or a disability that would prevent them from testing. We do have the ability to do reasonable adjustments to our test to allow someone to take it. For example, everything, so there is instructions on our website for this, so contacting us at info@naati.com.au is important if you want to take a test and are seeking reasonable adjustments, and not the day before the test. We would hope that you can contact us several months before the test so we can discuss it. But as an example, we have had vision impaired candidates that would have otherwise struggled with the online interface of our test. In that scenario, we've been able to do it either in our office with them having a support person available or a support person being available just visible online as well. So we can look at ways to make the test accessible without reducing the standard.
So if someone has a challenge or feels like they would face additional challenges, how would you recommend they go about it? Who would they have to contact?
Yeah, if you contact info@naati.com.au, that is the easiest way. So we use, so people understand, we have a help desk system where all of those info@NAATI emails come. We receive about 45,000 emails a year. There are 40 odd people in the company that have access to that, and it's our quickest way of being able to get you to the right person. So if you call our phone number, the person that you want is not necessarily going to answer it, almost guaranteed not, and then being able to connect you is quite difficult. So emailing us at info@NAATI allows us to triage the ticket, make sure that if someone's doing an online test right now, we can get to it quickly, but then allocating it to the right person if that's the case, and then they'll be able to work with them through the process and ask for the medical document that's required or think about different options as well.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Staying on this topic of testing, I have met several people who may have failed at their first attempt at testing. And often one of the complaints we hear is that perhaps the role player was speaking with a language that wasn't what they expected. It might have been a too high a register or any type of dialect that they might not have understood. What does NAATI do to ensure that role players, examiners, everybody, anyone who's involved in testing delivers a consistent performance, so that all candidates have the same level of challenge?
Yeah, there's a couple of parts of this question as well, but the very specific one on role players is we accept applications for people that want to be role players with us. They go through a screening process, which includes a language assessment that's done by our examiner panels. Then there is a training process where we do the training of what is required for the role itself, but even the day prior to the test, they do additional training with the actual materials that are going to be used on the test day. And we have what we call a rehearsal interpreter. And the rehearsal interpreter sits in the position of the candidate while the other role players act out what they're going to do the day after. So there's the opportunity to get the language right, understand the dialogue properly, and work through any considerations. And then we've got a feedback loop process, both from candidates if they've got issues, but in addition from our examiners when they review and are marking the test performance, they also look at the role player performance and make notes on if there's been some issues, and we can take that into account when issuing results, whether we have to offer a free test if something's gone wrong. We're dealing with humans, so the majority of our tests are good, but there are times when we've gone, yep, you're right, the role player hasn't been perfect. In that scenario, we've reviewed it and we'll offer a free test in that example. The secondary part of that question, though, is this is a high stakes professional test. The NAATI language policies look for interpreters that can cover a range of dialects from around the world. So in a Spanish or an Arabic, very, very broad and diverse regions that speak those languages, but even in smaller regional geographic areas, there can be dialectical differences that need to be able to be accommodated by a professional interpreter. So, and that's, I guess, part of being a NAATI certified interpreter is being able to deal with those dialectical differences that are spoken between regions and being able to work that out. There is the interactional management component of the test, which allows for stopping the conversation, seeking clarification where required as well. So, yeah, there's regional differences between English, there's regional differences between Spanish, Arabic, and all the other languages as well. I know even in Auslan, within Australia, there are differences between the West Coast and the East Coast. So professional interpreters, we certify in a language, we don't do dialects, and not the assumption, the test is designed to ensure that people can, the interpreters can work between those dialects effectively.
And is that the same for CI and CPI testing? Is this requirement the same, or is there a little bit more tolerance in CPI testing for that?
CPI testing is live, where CI testing is pre-recorded. So the CPI has all the training and the requirement there, but the need for both ones, the need to be able to accommodate different dialects is the same. There is still a requirement.
Okay. Yes. That makes sense, actually, because, of course, when you're working out in the community, you might be faced with people that have a dialect that's different than yours, and you should be able to know how to deal with that situation if it comes up.
And it sort of goes back to the one of the original questions, which is if there is a shortage or surplus of interpreters as well. There is many languages where that shortage would be made worse if we did dialects. If we said Shanghainese, which is a dialect, that really limits the market for that interpreter to be able to get work, but it also limits the availability for consumers to be able to access an interpreter that's speaking in Mandarin, for example, or Minnan Chinese, for example.
I know that in the work, when I'm working, sometimes I do get requests that specify a dialect. They might say this person speaks. I interpret in Italian, so sometimes the job request says this person speaks a dialect from the south. So an interpreter can also refuse that job if they don't feel comfortable with that. But I suppose that yes, if you have the ability to work with all of that, that gives you an opportunity to get much more work as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that language service providers or consumers couldn't ask for a specific dialect, and there is no doubt that that would make it slightly easier. But again, it's very restrictive as well. So Spanish speaker might say, I'm most comfortable with Argentinian Spanish. If there is an Argentinian Spanish interpreter available, fantastic. But if not, another Spanish interpreter should be able to take that work.
Speaking of PD points now, how does NAATI treat PD points that have been earned during the time between when my certification expires and when I get my new credential? Because there's about, correct me if I'm wrong, what is it, 4 weeks, 5 weeks when one tries to recertify before they get the new credential. If I get PD points in that time, what does NAATI do with it? Can I use it for my new credential or not really?
So if we use today as the example, if your expiry date was 3rd of July, anything done, so even if you put your recertification application in on the 3rd of June, and then you did a PD session on the 14th of June, it's prior to the new start date, so it wouldn't count. Where that is the case, we would recommend that you lodge the PD, even though it was done at a prior date, because it hasn't been used before. Lodge it for a future date and just make a note of it when you lodge. So did on the 14th of June, but not claimed in last recertification period, so claiming in this one. That's the best way to make sure that it counts.
Let me understand this right. You're saying that the system wouldn't recognize it because it's prior to the certification date, but
yeah, if you put it in on the
it.
14th of June, it wouldn't count. If you put it in as the 4th of July, it would count, but we would just need that little explanation that wasn't claimed in last period, so claiming in this one.
So NAATI would still accept that though?
Yeah, but within reason. So if you manage to get 200 points of PD during the period, we're not saying that you should be claiming for stuff 2 years ago into the new period. We're really looking at that sort of 3-month window prior from when recertification opens to expiry date. We've definitely got the opportunity to look at that flexibly. But yeah, not 6, 12, 18 months prior.
Yes, of course, because the whole point of PD is to make sure that we stay up to date with our skills.
Up to date and current, yep.
As you would know, a lot of translators and interpreters, they work with privates as well. They'll have their own private clients and they issue invoices for each of these jobs. When they're seeking recertification, what's the best way to reference multiple invoices when we have a large number of invoices in the logbook?
Definitely don't do them one by one, is probably the solution. I think from people that from practitioners I talk to, doing it all at the end is problematic as well. So maybe every 3 or 6 months, it's worth bundling everything up. Whether you can do that via, if you're working for a language service provider, they might be able to provide a statement. They can often do a statement for the 3 years. If you're doing freelance work, it might be a letter from your accountant. We don't want personal details, so make sure it's redacted, but it could just be a summary of all the work you've done on an Excel sheet. We want it to be as flexible as possible. So it could also be a tax return once a year, for example. If your hourly rate, you could just divide what you earn from interpreting into the hourly rate and say, this is proof of what I've done and this is my hourly rate. So we are very open to different ways of accommodating that work practice. And definitely don't do every entry because it'll take forever.
Yeah. So what's the minimum amount of detail that you need in order to accept whatever we log as proof?
Guidelines say that we could even take a statutory declaration of this is what I did and for how many hours. But the easiest one to do would just be like a summary of invoices or something to that effect would be fine.
Okay, yeah. Continuing with the recertification requirements, but talking about the work practice requirements now, do these vary depending on how much the language is in demand or a specific direction? Because sometimes there's difference in demand depending on the direction that we're translating in as well.
Yeah. Currently not. It is something that we're looking to change. So based on all our surveys and feedback and focus groups, we know this is an area of concern for people, and it's even meant that practitioners have chosen not to try to even recertify because they don't think they meet requirements. Definitely for the next 6 to 9 months, I would recommend anyone that's struggling to meet work practice requirements to email us at info@naati.com.au to talk to us about what the options are. We're very aware of definitely small demand languages, but also practitioners with multiple credentials. I talked to one very experienced interpreter a few months back who had conference interpreter and was thinking they wouldn't be able to renew their certified translator credential because most of their work in the last year had been in conference work. That is definitely someone we don't want to see drop out of the system because of what is just a number on a spreadsheet. So definitely contact us in the next 6 to 9 months until we implement a new recertification catalogue. But it is something that we are definitely going to make it easier for people to do the work practice part because we've heard that feedback. So I can't reveal it now because it hasn't been agreed on, but it's definitely one of the key changes that we're going to make life easier.
Okay. And is there anything that you can suggest to interpreters and translators that do work in low demand languages to increase or to reach the hours or words required for the recertification?
Yeah, at the moment, do what work is out there. The thing we'll be looking at the most is the professional development you're doing to make sure you're on top, and then apply anyway with even a small statement of, I work in Burmese, there hasn't been much work, but this is how much I've got. So log what you've got and then just get in contact with us. We will be able to work with practitioners to make sure they get recertified where it's genuine.
So there's quite a bit of flexibility actually to the requirements at the moment.
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, PD is the one that we definitely want to see people be doing PD, but work practice we can be very flexible on noting language, number of credentials, and the like.
In the new and simplified recertification process that you're working towards, there's going to be significant changes in the work practice requirements. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Is that the case for PD as well?
PD, the number of PD points will remain the same at this stage. We want to make the process easier without eroding the value of recertification. We don't want it just to be tick a box, pay money, get recertified. We want to be able to keep that that requirement in there. But when we looked at the recertification catalogue, there is 45 current categories. Only 15 of them are used by more than 20% of people. So we know that 2/3 of the catalogue is almost filler for a lot of people. We think there is some simplification that we can do. One of the concepts which probably will make it through is rather than saying professional development that it's 1 to 2 hours, 4 to 8 hours, 2 days plus, for example, we can just make it a simpler per hour, it's worth a certain number of points. So if it's a 3-hour session, it might be 5 points per hour. If it's a 5-hour session, it's easy. It's still just 5 points per hour. So that has a much easier to submit and much simpler concept, I guess, as well. We're looking at moving some things, like there is one category which is taught T&I at a higher education institution for a semester. At the moment, that's worth about the same amount of points as doing a survey. That doesn't make sense. So we're looking at rebalancing points where appropriate, but also the number of people that are teaching T&I in a university setting is quite small. So looking at creating a new category that doesn't have a minimum requirement of points, which is industry leadership or a category similar to that. So we keep the category, the people that are doing it get rewarded appropriately in the amount of points for the level of skill required, but it also doesn't clutter up the start of the catalogue, which is confusing for people that will never need that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that sounds all very interesting, and we're very much looking forward to the new recertification process. To finish our session today, I think we'll stay on the recertification process. We've covered PD and work requirements. Are there any other changes that can be expected with a new process? For example, I don't know, more years before it is required to recertify, or anything else that you can think of?
Yeah, some of the noting that we've still got a little bit of way to go. So the process for us from here is we did lots of surveys and stakeholder engagement at the end of 2024 calendar year. This year we've done focus groups and more work on it. The process from here will be there is a management review process, and then once we get the draft right, we'll go back out to our focus groups and just make sure it works the way we think it's intending to. And then once that's signed off, the process will be, hopefully, that we launch it in the AUSIT conference in November in Canberra for it to take effect in the new calendar year in 2026. So that's the general timeline. In the back end, we're going to have to do a fair bit of system development to make sure that the My NAATI screen works properly and everything records well, and make sure that people within mid recertification lose everything they've already done. So we've got to work out how that works from a system point of view. Some of the things we're looking at, noting those caveats, rather than the 3-month before and 3-month after window, will probably go about a year either side will be possible for that. Again, to be confirmed, but being able to apply earlier if you've already met the requirements, I think is going to be very useful. But then having the expiry date remain the same, but potentially allowing people to renew their credential even if it's expired up to a year after that date rather than the 3 months currently. That's one of the key things that's being looked at the moment. Mentioned the work practice requirements, very keen to make sure that that's both not onerous but also not restrictive to people working in small languages or with multiple credentials. And the rebalancing of points, I think, is going to be a big one for us as well. So simplification of the catalogue, but balancing of points. We really want to incentivise membership of professional organisations like AUSIT, ASLETA, and ZSTI. We think they're really important to create a sense of community and support amongst practitioners, but it also leads to those conversations about ethics and professional development as well that don't necessarily have a hard certificate that comes at the end, but we certainly see the benefits in those. So yeah, simplification, easier to enter as well. We want to fix up how My NAATI works, make that better, and work practice and the expiry and application either side are the key things we're looking at.
Well, we look very much forward to hearing all about it at the conference then. Hopefully everything will be decided by then and we'll get to hear it from you.
Look forward to talking to everyone about it while I'm there.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Michael, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And for everyone, I believe tickets for the conference are already for sale, so come and join us there. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Conversations Podcast.